Alrighty, I think everyone should be able to see my screen. It should say Homebuyer Masterclass for Coastal Virginia. Again, thank you for stopping in, checking this out. Hopefully you're going to get a lot of great information tonight. Actually, I know you're going to get a lot of great information tonight. Now, the way I run this is we'll go through a lot of different mistakes that people make in the home buying process. We really want to get you on the path for it. I like to say knowledge is power, or to be forewarned is to be forearmed. So let me go and turn my camera on so you can see me. And let's see. Oh, there I am. What's up? And you should see the screen fine. Okay, everything is going nicely. Perfect. All right. So first thing we're going to always ask is, make sure you're in the right place. A lot of times when you're buying a house, you ask yourself questions. Am I going to overpay for the wrong house? How much can I really afford? What is the price cost below my budget? And could I accidentally mess up my loan approval? What if I just make a decision I regret? I think we've all heard of buyer's remorse. And the big one is, where do I even start? Buying a home can be so intimidating. A lot of people, they end up wasting money, wasting time, miss the opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their family because they just don't know where to start. And that's really where we want to help you. So we're going to get into making sure that you don't waste a lot of money. Obviously buying a house does cost something, but we don't want you to spend money that you don't need to spend. Loan approval mistakes. I am very thankful that I have a very excellent mortgage professional. She'll be hopping on near the end, just during the Q&A section of the show. Yeah. We don't overpay for the wrong house, builder traps, upgrade shot, stress, confusion, and buyer's remorse, as I just mentioned. I will introduce myself. My name is Marc Ian Griffin, aka Captain Real Estate. I am retired Navy, and I've been living in Hampton Roads since 1992. So I'm very familiar with the area. My thing is, I really want you to. When I came into the business, I really wanted to help people because there are a lot of things that were happening where people were uninformed and they were getting into bad deals. So I really want to make sure that you are clear and confident as you move forward with the buying process. Whether you buy, this month or 2 years from now, we really want to make sure that you're getting the information that you need. And again, and I'll go over some of these costly mistakes I've seen people do. But I always say, one, I can't help everyone, but I can help someone. That's why we do these webinars, because I really want to help. And then also, people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is so important, because I just think we need to care about one another. All right. So here's tonight's roadmap, and I'm just going to give full disclosure. I just updated my slide deck, so it might be a little disjointed. So just ask for forgive me in that vein. There is going to be a QR code in the lower right-hand corner. So if you want to scan it, or just go to coastalva.chat, that will take you to where you can set up a consult. We're going to go have a Q&A session at the end, but if you want to go into a deeper conversation, we make that available. Okay. So we're going to talk about shopping before you know the numbers, assuming you need 20% down, thinking you need perfect credit, assuming every mortgage works the same, big financial moves before closing. I'll tell you some stories about that. And buying emotionally instead of strategically, making an offer without a plan, confusing the appraisal with the inspection. So we'll get into that. Signing before you understand the contract and waiting for perfect conditions. So again, there might be a little bit of disjoint, but I promise you there's going to be huge value as we go through this. And I will say, I always say talk about your questions at the end, but it's okay to put your questions in the chat. Just understand that they may not be answered until the very end, just because sometimes we're going to answer those questions further in the masterclass. Okay. So mistake number one: always shopping before you know your numbers. That is a big thing where, and I had this happen earlier this month, where a person was shopping for properties, and yet she didn't know what her pre-approval was. She didn't know what she was actually approved for. And that's a recipe for heartbreak, because you just don't know where you are financially. So maybe that's going to work for you, or maybe it's not. It actually turned out, I think she was looking at $1 million property. That wasn't really what she was looking for. But the point is that we wanted to make sure you get a pre-approval and know the difference between when you're pre-approved. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend all that money. If you're pre-approved for $500,000, but you're happier at a different lower budget, that's fine. You don't even have to buy a $500,000 house. It can be a $100,000 house, and you'd be super happy with it. That's what really matters, and you're still going to be able to build equity. And if you're renting, you're going to save money regardless. We're going to talk about build your buyer file early and shop with clarity, not guesswork. It really is a process of understanding, being again knowledgeable about the process. And I just kind of talked about this approval amount. I talk so much. Sometimes we're going to hit panels that you're like, Mark, you just said that. I know. So please forgive me. But approval amount versus comfort amount. So I'm just kind of rehashing that again. Just because you're approved for a certain amount doesn't mean to spend all of that. Find something that, make sure you know what you're happy with, what you're comfortable with, and roll with that, okay? So your approval amount may not be your ideal budget. Make sure you leave room for groceries, gas, savings, real life. We do not want you to ever be house poor. And house poor just means, well, I can barely afford to live here, right? Because I can pay the mortgage, but I can't buy groceries. That is something we never want you to do. We want you to enjoy your home, okay? And we're going to get more into the buying a house that might be a today house, not your future house. So we'll get into that. Yeah, peace of mind is a huge thing. So yeah, we want to make sure you're there. Now, building your buyer file, and this is really a big deal. Like when I bought my first house, it was a challenge for me. I'm not gonna lie. But getting your documents, income statements, bank statements, IDs, pay stubs, all of those things. Now, by the way, I didn't ask, but if anyone here is military, put that in the chat, just because you kind of fall in a different category. You have some advantages. I'm retired military, so I know, but it's always good to know if you are a veteran or active duty military, or just affiliated with the military at all. But by having the buyer file, it puts you in a position that when you're chatting with the lender, it makes it easier. Now, again, I'm kind of outside my lane because I have someone who handles that. Fortunately, so they'll be able to answer those a little more in depth than I can. But strong preparation does help you move forward with confidence. Debt to income ratio, which a lot of people don't know what a DTI is, but basically, in layman's terms, it's something that also falls into what they look at when you are buying a home. Basically, they look at how much money is coming into your household and how much is going out, and that debt to income ratio, if you can keep it low, it's always going to be a better thing. Okay, I'm not going to go into it too much, but it's not just your credit score. There are other things that they look at when putting together your pre-approval. Mistake number two, and this was a big one. I was guilty of this before I bought. Assuming that you need 20% down. Um, there are programs you do not need 20% down. Okay, absolutely not. Just be aware of that, and this is why also we want to get your pre-approval, because there's lots of stuff that you can qualify for, and get you to a place that you can own a home much sooner than you realize. But you don't need 20% down. There are situations where you do, certain programs where you would need 20% down. But for the most part, most of us who are looking at VA or FHA, you don't require 20% down. Okay. And the other thing about that, I'm going to just say it right here, is I know of people. I had a conversation yesterday where someone wanted to wait 5 years to buy because they wanted to save up enough money. But the problem is you're saving money. Meanwhile, the house is continuing to appreciate. So you saved up money to buy the house, and oh, by the way, the house is now $50,000 more than it was 5 years ago. Oh, that could have been your equity, but now it's a greater expense. So there's things that are out there that seem like they're smart moves, but then, and this is why we're here, to give you a different perspective of why it can really work against you. How much money might you actually need? And here again, this is why we're going to do a pre-approval. Mark, I'm not going to buy for 2 years. That's fine. That's fine, because when we start the process now, then you know where you're actually going to be or what you actually need. Right now, you're just guessing because you don't actually have a pre-approval. You have guesswork, and we want to get away from that. So down payment and closing costs, those are completely two different things. I don't know if I put in here the EMD, the Earnest Money Deposit, because I revised my panels. But cash to close is going to include down payment fees, title fees, escrow, prepaid items. All these things you're going to be aware of before you actually close. Okay. And the good thing is, a lot of times we might be able to work out something where you get what they call seller concessions, where the seller is crediting money to you to reduce a lot of those costs. Because obviously, at the end of the day, the seller wants to sell their house, so sometimes they have to help out a little bit. Exact number depends on loan price, negotiated terms. There are things like buying points, where you can buy down the rate, or the seller can buy down the rate. Things I've seen in the industry over the years, that it's not like buying a car. It's a lot more involved. Yeah, 20%, not a thing. There are some amazing programs out there, and you don't know what you qualify for. This is another reason why you want to get pre-approval, because there's not a program like I refer to buying cars. So I did sell cars for a little while getting my real estate license back, and there's so many conversations I have where someone addresses buying a house as if they're buying a car. And there's no like first-time car buyer programs, but there are a lot of first-time home buyer programs. Likewise, there's other programs out there that can help you. Believe it or not, owning a home helps the economy. So there are reasons why they want you to buy and make it, it makes it for a stronger economy. VA and the USDA do provide other options. As I've already told you, I'm retired from the military, so I use my VA loan. So in that case, I didn't have to put anything down, and I didn't have to pay any PMI, which is mortgage insurance. We're not going to get into that now, but it's just an expense that is taken off the table if you're military. But there are other things like down payment assistance and things of that nature that also exist. And like it says, those do vary depending on your income, the property location, and loan type. So this is, again, why it's so important to talk to uh, a lender, which, like I said, we'll have that. What is, trying to watch the time. Oh, someone just said they're trying to make it, but they couldn't make it. Thinking you need perfect credit. Not a thing. Not a thing. You do not need perfect credit. Believe that, which is an awesome thing. There's so many who they think 720, and you know why? Because they watch those commercials by Credit Karma, right? They watch those Credit Karma commercials, and it says 720. They think, oh my gosh, I got a 720 credit score. You do not need a 720 credit score. They, again, it is good for the economy when you're able to buy a home and build your own personal wealth. Okay, so you can be, from what I know, like as low as a 580 and be able to buy a home. Again, there's different programs and things of that nature. And even if you were, I did have a family that they were in the like 510, and they had, and their debt to income ratio was really out of whack. But we, working with them, it was over a year, about a year and a half. We got them to a place where they were in the low sixes. So it's not, and I've seen families do that in less than a year. They just had some challenges. But the fact of it is, you do not need perfect credit. And this is also why you need to talk to your loan officer, because they can put together a map so you know exactly what you need to do and things that you don't need to do. Because I've had conversations with people who thought they were doing the right thing because they talked to their uncle or their best friend, and who by the way, none of them are loan officers, and they steer them in the wrong direction. So please make sure that you're always talking with a loan professional. And as I mentioned before, the credit score is only part of the story. As I mentioned, your DTI, your debt to income ratio, savings, reserves, cash, all of those things build a picture. So you want to be able to look at all of that before you, you want your lender to look at all that before you decide, oh, I can't buy, because that's not always the case. A lot of times you can. All right. And here's another thing: start before you feel ready. That is huge. because buying a house is scary unless you've done something. It's like riding a bike, right? For those, hopefully everyone's had a chance to ride a bike, but like when you first ride a bike, it's scary because you're gonna fall, you're gonna scrape your knee. It's like, I don't know about it, I want to do this. We've all had those experiences that we don't want to just jump in. And plus, it's finances, right? It can be very, very challenging. It can be a little embarrassing, right? I can promise you, myself, the people I work with, we will always approach your situation with care and confidentiality, so it stays in our circle. It doesn't go out, and it's not going to go on the internet. It's not going to go anywhere. It stays right here. Okay, so just be aware of that. We're here for you. Of course, the bullet points talk about review your credit early and fix reporting mistakes before you start shopping. There's a caveat to that. It's I still want you to talk to the lender, okay, the loan officer, because again, they're going to have a roadmap and they can walk through with you as you start getting closer and closer to that pre-approval. And by the way, I didn't really expand on this, but I'm going to do it real quick. The pre-approval and pre-qualifications are different. And sometimes you might receive something in the mail that says, hey, great news, you're pre-qualified to buy a home. It does not mean you're pre-approved. Pre-approval process is when the loan officer has gone through your whole financial fingerprint. And then they'll give you an okay, you can buy a house at 500,000 or $250,000 or whatever it is, but it's completely different. So don't mix those up. So you're going to hear me always say pre-approval, and you might have something in the mail saying pre-qualification or pre-qualified. Not the same thing. Okay. And if you ever have a question, always feel free to set up a consult at coastalva.chat. All right. And I kind of already hit on this, but I'm going to hit it on it again. Assuming every mortgage works the same, they do not. Down payment requirements are different. Mortgage insurance, funding fees. The mortgage or the FHA and the VA, they work completely different. Conventional works different from both of those. And I'm probably throwing things out there. You're like, what the heck? I don't even know what you're talking about. That's okay. You don't need to. This is why we have a loan officer that takes care of things and can explain those things for you and just show you which options are and which one's the best one. Because at the end of the day, we want you to be able to buy a home and in a way that's really not challenging, if that makes sense. So and where it's affordable, I should say. Here it is: conventional FHA, VA, and USDA. So conventional loans work well for buyers with stronger credit, stable finances. FHA loans help buyers who need a lower down payment. VA loans are powerful for eligible service members and veterans. USDA may offer low or no down payment options. And at the end of the day, talk to the loan officer. But just understand there are different loans out there and different programs out there. Because aside from all these, there are like sub-contexts, sub like programs that are available, depending on, with like FHA or USDA. But got to talk to your loan officer. Look at the whole loan, not just the rate. Look at your monthly payment, not just the rate. Compare cash needed up front, including down payment and closing costs. Review mortgage insurance, funding fees, long-term loan costs. And think about how long you want to plan to keep the home and whether refinancing. Because so with myself, when I bought my house, the interest rate had dropped like a year later. So I was able to refinance very quickly and drop my payment. Now I bought my house in the 90s, so it really wasn't that expensive, all things considered, but a little more money in my pocket is better than that. So that's the same thing. You might be in a position where where you're waiting for the interest rates to change, which, by the way, let's go back to that conversation where I'm waiting to save up this money. Meanwhile, the home is continuing to appreciate in value. So by the time it gets to that perfect spot, which, by the way, never happens, but that perfect spot, you're like, oh my goodness, this thing has gone up in value by $30,000, $50,000. Okay. So did you help yourself or hurt yourself? Probably hurt yourself by waiting. Just saying. Oh boy, this one's huge. Mistake number 5 is making financial moves before closing. And this one is probably one of they're all pretty common, to tell you the truth, and different. But this one is a glaring, like, boom. I had 2 instances. One was my client, one was not my client. But so here's the thing. You get a pre-approval. Now, I already talked about the thing we call a debt to income ratio, right? It looks at how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. Well, you don't want to mess that up. You want to leave it alone. You don't want to open, like here said, credit cards, auto loans, financing furniture. Any large purchases that are going to change that debt to income ratio will mess things up. So here's what happened. So the first one, lady put an offer in a house. The offer was accepted. So the contract was ratified. Everything was good. Everything was moving forward. She got excited and went to Grand Furniture on Virginia Beach Boulevard plug for them, I guess, and bought 14 grand in furniture, which of course changed her debt to income ratio, which means she now was not able to be approved at the value that they put the offer in for. She lost the home because she bought furniture for the home before it was closed. Do not buy anything until you're done. And oh yeah, by the way, don't believe the salesperson, because the salesperson is just trying to get a sale. They don't care if you close on a house or not. They're trying to pay their own bills. Okay, so case in point, I had a house. And matter of fact, this was a family that I had been working with for over a year to get their credit to where it needed to be. It was a mother and daughter, and we finally found a house in Portsmouth. And we did the home inspection, and they came to the house to go over the home inspection findings, and just go back and tell the seller what would need to be fixed. And they drive up a brand new Honda. What was it? Minivan. Was it the Honda Odyssey? Really nice van. I said, well, you're going to be living in that van because you just lost this house. Their debt to income ratio went, and they could not buy the house they wanted. And the daughter said, but the salesperson said that this was an asset. I said, they're going to say anything they need to get you to buy. Your credit is going to look amazing when you're buying this house. So of course they're going to tell you to come on in because you're going to get approved. You are going to get approved, but it is going to destroy your ability to buy the home that you want. Okay. So now the day after you close on that house, buy whatever you want. Buy 5 cars. I don't care. But do not buy anything. Oh, and by the way, so you have these programs called Klarna, Affirm, Sezzle, I think, and Afterpay. So these are these apps where you can buy now, pay later. Okay, those are credit. Okay, so those also fall in that realm. Do not use those programs. Just if you're buying something, just buy it. Just buy it normal, your debit check card or whatever. But do not open up any new credit cards. Do not take any more debt. It will crush your ability to close on your home. And I'm probably, because I ran off of my mouth, I'm going to probably overlap some of the things that are the panels. But pre-approval does not mean finished. So that's just speaking to the fact that, yes, you have a pre-approval, but you're not done. You're not done until you've been in the closing office, and now they're recording your name on the deed. That's when you're done. Okay. They will recheck your credit before they close. Okay. Changing jobs. Now, the caveat to that is when you change jobs, if it's the same job, not a big deal. But if you're going from being a welder to a school teacher or something like that, that's a big change. Okay. So always, before you do anything, check with your lender, say, hey, I'm looking at doing this. And they'll say, no, don't do that. Or, okay, no, you're fine. That's same, but check with your lender first before you make any changes. Okay. Just get to that closing and you'll be good to go. And of course, protect your approval, deposits, withdrawals, purchases. Do not co-sign. Do not co-sign. Do not co-sign, please. Nothing. Don't touch it. And the very last point here, when in doubt, pause and ask first. We legit are here for you. Okay, like I said before in the first panel, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I cannot express how much we want your life to be better. We want your life to be more affordable. We want you to be able to, build equity and be able to take that equity and buy more homes or go on vacations or whatever you want to do. But 95% of wealth comes from owning a home. So this is what we do. We want your lives to be changed for the better. Confusing the appraisal. Sorry, let me see what my time is, because we're supposed to do this for an hour. Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay. Is everyone doing good? If you're doing good, give me a 1 in the chat. I just want to make sure everyone is doing good. If you have questions, please, as always, feel free to put them in the chat, but we're not going to answer them until the end. Or we'll, if you give you the opportunity to, thank you for the one. We'll give you the opportunity to, thanks, these. I'll give you the opportunity to unmute your mic and go over some questions. All right, let's keep it rocking and rolling. Now, confusing the appraisal with the inspection. Okay, so what's the appraisal and what's the inspection? So the appraisal, so let's say we find a house. Like, okay, I find this house. It's really nice. Oh, I love this house. And you put in the offer and the loan company says, okay, cool. And they send somebody to look at the house. So let's say this house is worth $500,000, right? But the offer was $550,000, not $500,000. Here's the problem. So you put in the contract for $550,000 for this $500,000 house. The appraiser looks at it, he's like, oh, well, this house is actually worth, and it is actually worth $500,000. So we have a problem here because we will give you $500,000 for this house because that's what it's worth. But you said I'm approved for $1 million. Yeah, I know that, but we're not going to give you $550,000 for a $500,000 house. So in situations like that, and that's not even what this panel is talking about. Let me talk about that first. So the appraisal has nothing to do with a home inspection. Okay, the home inspection, and I have some horrible home inspection stories that I'm not going to bore you with. They're probably super interesting, but I'll go off track, right? But when a house is appraised, it doesn't mean that there's nothing going on with the house. And oh, by the way, no house is perfect. Okay, there's going to have little things going on with it. That's normal. Okay, any house is going to have little things going on with it. When you do an inspection, you just want to make sure you're looking at those very expensive problems. So, okay, here's where it talks about coming in too low. So, and this actually happened to me with actually it was a veteran buyer and a active military, or a retired guy was selling his home. I think it was a retired chief, Navy chief, and this couple, they're a young couple, active duty, wanted to buy it. Long story short, the house was priced higher than what it appraised for. So when that happened, in this specific case, the seller decided to drop the price down. I think what really happened was his agent had already told him what the house was worth in the market. And this is what happens with a lot of sellers, and this is called endowment effect, and that's another training. But when they're like, well, the house is appraised at $200,000, but I have put all these updates in the house, and I've raised my kids in this house, so I want $250,000, but it doesn't appraise for $250,000. So they have two choices. They can renegotiate. And like I said, in this case, the seller did drop the price down so that because he was also military, he's retired military. So he's like, and plus I think his agent had already told him what to expect. Or the other side of it is, and this is really when you're in a more of a competitive seller's market. Seller's market means that there's multiple offers on any house that comes on the market. Okay, that's a seller market. In other words, the advantage is to the seller. So it's called seller's market. But the buyer will bring extra cash to the deal. By the way, make sure you talk to your lender before you take a gift from a family member or whatever. They're going to tell you the process of how to do that the best way. Okay, but there are different things to do if the appraisal comes in low. It does happen sometimes. The appraisal gaps, and I've already kind of talked about this. It's just basically a gap between the appraisal and what you actually agreed to. You just got to deal with it as it comes. It's a case by case basis. All right, signing before you understand the contract. Now, funny thing, when I came into real estate, had been in the military for at that point 19 years. I started doing real estate before I actually retired, right? And in the military, we are super attention to detail when it comes to the contract. So I started off always explaining everything about the contract, so that when my clients move forward with the buying process or the selling process, in some cases, they knew exactly what they were signing. And I didn't realize that not every agent does this. Okay, so it's super important. Do not sign anything. Make sure you're going through that contract. Your agent should be able to go through that contract with you, bit by bit, and making sure you have super clarity on it. So like your earnest money deposit needs to be in a certain time. If it goes past that, you're in breach of contract. There's different things. Your earnest money deposit. Let's say you put in your earnest money deposit and the deal falls through. Well, what happens then? Do I automatically get my money back? So there's different things that have to happen. So we go through all that, making sure that you understand the contract. EMD. Okay, so first off, EMD stands for Earnest Money Deposit. This is what you're putting forth saying, hey, Mr. Home Seller, I am super serious about buying your house, right? I am so serious that I'm going to put, $5,000 down, or $1,000, or $500. It really depends on what the house is, because there is no a sign like, okay, I have to put in this amount every time if I'm buying a house. I will say in the Hampton Roads area, $1,000 is kind of standard. Just maybe or $2,500 in that ballpark. And I've seen 500, but it really depends on the value of the home, right, and how much earnest money deposit you are putting down. It is separate from your down payment. Okay, it can be credited at your closing, but it is not your down payment. So please don't get those confused. That is kind of a big one, where the EMD or earnest money deposit gets confused with the down payment. They are separate. The amount and the due date are going to be written into the contract. Again, do not miss the deadline. Now since I've said it, your earnest money deposit, you have 2 business days to get it in there. Okay. And usually we're going to use like an app or something, but you want to get that in there as quickly as possible. Back in the old days when they give me a check, I'd freak out because and I never lost a check, but there's always the potential of you losing that check. But of course, now we have other means to get the EMD in escrow. There are going to be a number of contingencies in place, and they are there not to be a pain in the neck, but it protects you. Inspections, financing, appraisal, home sale, all of these different things that can come into play. A home sale contingency, by the way, is when you're selling your house so you can buy another house. So you need that money. All of these things in place have to be in that contract to protect you from something just, you being in breach of contract, or just someone, taking advantage of, a situation. And here, I talked about this before. You can say it again, waiting for the perfect interest rate. Now, I do want to make sure that we stay on time. Okay, we're looking good. It's 1:45. Interest, you never know what the interest rates are going to be, okay? And the thing about it is, whether interest rates go up or the interest rates go down, I can guarantee you one thing, especially if you live in coastal Virginia, that the house you're looking at is going to go up in price, okay? Or that neighborhood you're looking at is going to up in price. Especially if you live in Suffolk. They're building all over the place in Suffolk. They're building all over in Virginia Beach. They're building all over the place everywhere. You've seen the HRBT. They're trying to bring more jobs here, which not trying to, they are. Have you seen the airport? The airport is huge. Like if you haven't been to the airport, they're building a new terminal. So there's more jobs, there's more commerce coming here. You can do what you want, but if I'm advising you and you're on my masterclass, so I'm advising you, look at trying to buy now or as soon as you can, because if you're waiting for interest rates to go up or down, you can always refinance. That part's easy, but losing the equity in the home because you waited 4 or 5 years, it's gone. You cannot get that back. Okay. So please, I really, it's getting to a place where I harp on that a lot because I keep hearing that conversation. Oh, the market, blah 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 blah, and meanwhile you're losing out on your equity. So please, and if you're not sure, talk to us, ask questions. That's why we are here. Marry the house, not and date the rate. So again, marry the house. I found this amazing house in Suffolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake. I found this amazing house. I love it. But the rate's not where I want it to be. That's not a problem. Guess what? The rates will change. I talked to people who were buying houses, and I noticed that one here, but back in the 80s, like when I started, they're talking about the 14% interest rates that they had back in the 80s. Like, holy smokes, right? That's nothing compared to what we have now, right? Or excuse me, what we have now that people complain about is nowhere close to the 14% that they were dealing with in those days. The rates will change, okay? You can always refinance. Super easy. If you have questions, always, let us know. But you lose the house and you lose that equity. So just like I said, marry the house, but date the rate. Buy when your life is ready, and that's kind of works against. It can't sound like I'm saying against what I said before. This is that conversation with the mortgage professional, okay? Because they're going to be able to walk you through. Here again, we are here not to make you buy right now, but we are here to educate you and give you the information that you need to move forward. Now, this one is kind of I kind of already talked on that, so I'm going to skip it. But when you're buying the house, it's the start of the next chapter. And really what I'm talking about, is put it right here, you're building the equity and wealth, creating stability and security, investing in the future, making your own. I always love to talk about equity and wealth because like a friend of mine, he bought a house 3 years ago, and now he's actually using the equity in his home to invest in a business. Well, his business he started, and if he had not bought the house, actually, no, I think about it, excuse me, he's actually on his third house, but for the first house, he's leveraging that for the business, but for the second houses, he used those to buy the other ones. Anyways, long story short, if he had never bought a house, he would never have the equity. That's the point. If he waited, the things he's able to do now and the things he's able to do for a family, he never would have had. So, and you should also know that the first house that he got was not his dream home. It wasn't like, swimming pool in the back and hardwood floors and, wasn't all that. But it was a house, and it continued to appreciate. So it's not the finish line. It's the start of the next chapter, and so that you're in a place where you can build wealth. And if you want to buy more property, invest, do other things. But when you're renting, you can't do any of those things because you're always paying off someone else's property. All right. Some of these are kind of the same thing, so I'm not going to get into them. Okay. So the smart buyer roadmap. 1, get pre-approved and know your comfortable budget. Understand the full cost, down payment, closing costs, monthly payment. By the way, those things are going to come not because you talk to ChatGPT or whatever, you talk to your loan officer. Okay. For God's sake, please protect your approval. Do not buy cars. Do not do anything crazy. Whatever you do, go back to your loan officer and make sure that they get the okay, or if it's going to crush you, do not do it. Search based on needs, and I didn't really get into this portion. I think it was one of the panels that I'm updating. But one thing in Hampton Roads, I've talked to a lot of people who live on the peninsula and work on the south side, and they're like, and they deal with that tunnel traffic every day, going back and forth. It sucks, right? And they say, if I had known what I know now, I would have bought on the south side. But they didn't know, so they came here. They work at Oceana, but they bought a house in Hampton. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence on where you're moving to. Make a smart offer with the right strategies. This is where I really come in. Is being very strategic with the offer, and it's nothing I can really talk about here per se. There's certain situations that I'm not gonna get into, but we always want to have a smart offer. Part of that is always going to be partially knowing what the value of the homes are in that area. That's a big thing, because again, there will be the home seller that puts the house out there for $50,000, $30,000, $50,000 more than it's worth. But you, as a smart buyer, are going to put an offer in where it's actually valued, not what they're asking for. Now, there's a caveat to that, Mark, where there's multiple offers. Cross that bridge when we get to it. But if we're the only offer coming in right at its value, or hey, we can go for go a little lower, see what the seller does. If it's been sitting there for 6 months, yeah, we definitely need to go lower than the value price. It's just smart. The inspection, gosh, I'm really trying to watch my time. With that home inspection, guys, don't play around. Now, I will tell you that there's never ever a clean home inspection. It's not like, here again, it's not like buying a car. Okay, there's going to be little things, but some of those things are just little things. There can be big things like cracks in the foundation. That's a problem. Okay, I had one in Virginia Beach. Turned out there was a fire in the attic. Yeah, and they painted over it to cover up the stench. Now, fortunately, the home, not fortunately, by design, I get my home inspector always goes in the attic. The home inspectors don't go into the attic, which is crazy, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, that's a problem, because the wood up there is not, it has lost its integrity, so it could potentially collapse. So they went in there and they reinforced everything and fixed it. But yeah, you gotta, when those inspections come through, make sure you focus on the things that are like real safety issues, not the fact that it needs a paint job. I mean, that's okay. And then, of course, once we do all those things, you're going to close, get the keys, and start building equity. I'm going to skip over some of these because we've kind of already hit these. I will say, don't rush the process, but the truth of it is, most of us won't. I have this. What time is it? Yeah, just trust us. I had one situation with a family, and it was really a bad situation. Turned into a bad situation, but there were some red flags with the seller. I'm not going to get into everything that the seller had done that was illegal. But long story short, the deal was dragged out for months, and it really cost that family. Instead of pulling out when I had told them to pull out, they found themselves financially invested in the situation, and it really cost them a lot, not just peace of mind, but just a lot of money, a lot of heartache. It was bad, and you shouldn't have to wait 7 months to buy a house. Okay, so um, just trust your advisors. All right, and you got it. So obviously, free consultation, coastalva.chat. I am available. Don't buy scared, buy prepared. And now, this is our last panel. And now we're going to do Q&A. So, and I know some of you are watching this. You're going to be watching this on YouTube, the replay. If you have questions, definitely feel free to follow up with us. I'm very thankful that Jessica McGee with the Mortgage Experts, she would agree to come on and I'm working with her. She's amazing. But if you have any questions, this is the time. Let me change.